I didn't call the police. I told myself it was because I didn't have proof, but the truth was, I wasn't sure how to explain any of it without sounding insane. Instead, I cleaned the window, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't stand the sight of that single, perfect fingerprint staring back at me. I scrubbed until it was gone, but afterward, the glass felt colder under my hand than it should have. For the next 2 days, I barely slept. Every creak in my apartment, every hum of the refrigerator felt like it was masking something else, something quieter, just beneath the edge of hearing. I stopped answering Daniel's calls. I couldn't shake the thought of that photograph, of him not being in the frame. On the third night, I woke up at 3:14 a.m. exactly. My phone was on the nightstand, screen glowing. A new message. No words, just another photo. This one was from farther away, like whoever took it had been standing at the end of my bed. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might wake the neighbors. I threw on a jacket and decided, without a plan, that I was going back to the estate. The drive was longer than I remembered, the road even narrower, branches scraping the sides of my car like fingernails. When the house came into view, it was worse in the dark. The windows seemed deeper, emptier, like they were waiting. I parked far from the front steps, as if distance could somehow protect me. Inside, the cold hit immediately, wrapping around me like wet cloth. The silence was absolute, thick. My flashlight beam wavered as I made my way toward the library. Every shadow seemed to twitch at the edge of the light. The small, handleless door was still there in the corner. Only now, it was slightly open. Just enough to see a thin sliver of darkness inside, darker than the rest of the room, as if it wasn't just a lack of light but a complete absence of it. My throat tightened. I knew I should leave. But then I heard it, a voice. Low, whispering, my name. And it wasn't Daniel's. The whisper came again, soft, almost gentle, but so close it felt like it brushed against my ear. My pulse was pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. I stood frozen, staring at that thin gap in the door. It was too narrow for anyone to slip through, but the darkness behind it seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like lungs. Who's there? My voice cracked in the middle, and I hated how small it sounded. The darkness didn't answer, but something shifted inside it. A faint scrape, like fingernails dragging across wood. Then a second sound, quieter but sharper, the click of a camera shutter. I stepped back, my flashlight shaking in my hand. The beam couldn't pierce the blackness behind the door. It just seemed to dissolve into it. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to run, to never look back. But my feet moved forward instead. I pressed my fingers against the edge of the door and pushed it open. The hinges groaned, and the smell hit me, damp, dust, and something else, that same metallic tang I'd noticed on my first visit. The gap widened, and I saw that it wasn't a room at all. It was a staircase, spiraling down into the earth. No lights, no railing, just steps swallowed by shadow. The whisper came a third time, clearer now, curling around me like cold smoke. Emily, come down. I wanted to scream, but my voice wouldn't work. My body felt heavy, like the air itself was pressing me toward those stairs. I turned to leave, and stopped. Daniel was standing in the library doorway. His face was pale, his eyes wide, but there was something in his expression I couldn't read. He looked at me, then at the open door, and said in a low voice, "You shouldn't have found it." Behind me, from the darkness below, something began climbing the stairs. The sound of footsteps grew louder, slow, deliberate, and wrong. They didn't echo like normal steps. Instead, each one seemed to land with a dull, heavy thud that made the wood beneath my feet tremble. I stared at Daniel, but he didn't move toward me. He just stood there, blocking the only exit, his jaw clenched as if he was holding something back. "What's down there?" I demanded, though my voice barely rose above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. His eyes darted past me toward the staircase, and that was when I saw it, the first thing to emerge from the darkness. A hand. Long, pale fingers with joints bent at impossible angles, gripping the edge of the step. They flexed once, twice, as if testing the air. I staggered back, nearly colliding with the doorframe. The rest of it followed, a head, tilted too far to one side, hair hanging in damp strands that stuck to its face. Its skin was almost translucent, stretched thin over sharp bones. And its eyes, God, its eyes, were pitch black, reflecting no light, yet fixed entirely on me. "Don't look at it," Daniel said suddenly, his voice low but urgent. "If you look too long, it remembers you." I tore my gaze away, focusing instead on the edge of the door, the dust swirling in the beam of my flashlight. But I could feel it still climbing, still getting closer. There was a sound now, not breathing exactly, but a wet, dragging inhale that made my skin crawl. "Move," I said to Daniel, but he shook his head. "If you run, it follows," he replied. "The only way to stop it is," he cut himself off, glancing toward the door as the thing's hand reached the top step. The air grew colder, my breath coming in sharp clouds. I wanted to bolt past him, but my legs wouldn't obey. The creature stepped fully into the room, its head lowering until it was almost level with mine. From somewhere deep in its chest, it made a sound, not quite a growl, not quite a laugh. Daniel took a single step toward me and whispered, "Emily, I'm sorry." Then he pushed me toward the open door. I stumbled forward, my hand scraping against the rough stone walls of the stairwell as Daniel's shove sent me into the darkness. My flashlight clattered down the steps ahead of me, its beam twisting and strobing wildly before going out completely. The air grew damp, suffocating, as the sound of the creature descending followed close behind, not rushing, but pacing itself, as if it knew I had nowhere else to go. I tried to turn back, to climb up, but the door at the top slammed shut with a metallic clang that echoed through the narrow space. I screamed Daniel's name, but all I heard in return was his muffled voice above, speaking to someone, or something, in a language I didn't recognize. The syllables were slow, deliberate, like a chant. The stairs seemed endless. My hand slid along the wall, searching for a turn, a door, anything. Then, suddenly, my foot landed on flat ground. I was in a small chamber, the ceiling low enough that I had to crouch. The air was thick with that metallic smell again, stronger now, almost sweet. In the center of the room was a circle drawn in something dark and dried. Inside it, objects lay scattered, fragments of bone, scraps of cloth, and photographs. My photographs. Every single one from my apartment, my phone, even from years ago. Some were burned at the edges, others smeared with something I didn't want to identify. The whisper came again, right at my ear. "Now you stay." I spun around, but there was no one there. Just the black-eyed thing standing at the edge of the circle. Up close, its skin wasn't just pale, it was paper-thin, veins pulsing beneath the surface. Its head tilted in that unnatural way, and I realized it was smiling. Above us, the chanting stopped. The creature stepped forward, and my legs gave out. As I hit the ground, I caught one last glimpse upward, the faint outline of Daniel in the doorway, looking down at me. He didn't look angry. He didn't look afraid. He just looked relieved. The last thing I felt was those cold, jointed fingers wrapping around my wrist, pulling me into the circle. Then the darkness closed over me, and the world above was gone. I never believed in love at first sight. Honestly, I thought it was just something people made up for movies and cheap romance novels. But that was before the train ride. I was running late, as usual, and the only seat left was next to a guy with messy brown hair and headphones. I slid in, muttered a quick sorry, and pulled out my book. He glanced at the cover and smiled. "That's my favorite," he said. His voice was warm, low, like he'd been holding on to a secret all morning. We started talking, first about books, then about music, then about the ridiculous coffee prices at the station. At some point, I realized the world outside the train windows had blurred into nothing, and the only thing I was paying attention to was the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed. The train stopped at his station too soon. He stood, hesitated, then handed me a folded ticket stub. "In case you want to finish that conversation," he said. Inside was his number, scribbled in messy handwriting. I still have that ticket, tucked inside the book I was reading that day. And every time I see it, I remember that sometimes love doesn't wait for you to believe in it, it just walks in, sits down next to you, and changes everything.